Go to 1 John chapter 2. We're in a series today called Like Father, Like Son, Bearing the Marks of Authentic Faith. It's through the book of 1 John. Today's title is called Loving the World, Why You Shouldn't and How You Can Stop. Loving the World, Why You Shouldn't and How You Can Stop. So if you don't have a Bible today, then that's okay. We can be friends. Grab the Bible on the pew in front of you and follow along with our text today. I'll be referring to it quite frequently, okay? So I want everybody looking at a Bible today. That's page 1021 if you're using that Bible. Let's read verses 15 to 17 and then we'll begin, okay? 1 John 2, 15 to 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. You know, loving the world is perhaps the most anti-American dream verse ever. Right? Because the American dream, you live here, right? And what the American dream is that you've got to build a great life for yourself and make a great life for your family. And I think that has translated now into we just need to get a lot of stuff to make ourselves happy. Just get bigger and better, get faster, cooler, newer, and then we'll be happy. And then we come to a text like this that says, don't love the world. I just want to read a couple stats for you about consumerism in America, okay? I'm not saying this is you. This is just stats about Americans, okay? Here's the first one. In 1930, the average American woman owned 9 outfits. Just 9, ladies, so relax. Nowadays, the average American woman owns 30 outfits. This is why I love you, Rob Seymour. That's the only one that's particularly about women, by the way. Here's the second one. 25% of people who have 2-car garages don't have space to park their cars in their 2-car garages. Since the early 2000s, the home organization industry, okay, there's an industry for that, number one, okay, that's crazy. It has doubled in size. It now sees an annual earning of $8 billion. In the last 50 years, the average American home size has tripled. You know, your grandparents, they raise 18 kids in a bungalow, you know. And now my wife and I, we can't hardly stand 2 in a bungalow. An average child will accumulate 238 toys by the time they're 10 years old. They will use 12 of them. Annually, Americans spend more on shoes, jewelry, and watches, which is $100 billion, than they do on higher education. Researchers have found that present-day Americans purchase twice as many material goods as they did 50 years ago. 60% of private consumption worldwide is done by 12% of the world who live in North America and Western Europe. In the United States, there are more malls than high schools. Most households have more television sets than they do people. Yeah. Based on these numbers, I think it's fair to say, maybe I'm overstepping, that Americans love the world. We love the world. John is writing to people here in the book of 1 John. He knows they're Christians. He believes they're Christians. And there are these false teachers that come in, and they're usually in the New Testament, that's why people write, because of false teachers. So there's these false teachers that come in and making these terrible claims about Christ, these false claims about Christ, and who aren't living the life of a real Christian. And John wants his readers to be assured of their faith. That's the whole point of the book, 1 John 5:13. Here, he wants to give them a kind of warning or an admonition or an encouragement. in the face of these people who are living for the world, in the face of these false teachers who are under the rule of the evil one, he gives them an encouragement, an admonition. Do not love the world, he says, or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. My purpose today is to give you 2 reasons. If you're a note taker, if you got that bulletin, pull it out, take notes today. 2 reasons why you should not love the world. Okay? And then I want to talk about how you cannot love the world. Okay? So first, 2 reasons why you should not love the world, and then how you can stop loving the world. Okay? You tracking with me? You awake? Yes? Let's be friends here today. Act like we know each other. Okay. First, before we get into the 2 reasons, I want us to consider, what does John mean when he says don't love the world? What does John 3:16 say? Anybody? Just quote it. God so loved the world. Don't love the world. That's kind of confusing, right? Maybe a little bit. In John 3:16, he says, God so loved the world. And here in 1 John chapter 2, the same guy says, do not love the world. So I just want to bring some clarity for what he means in this verse, okay? In case it's confusing, before I get to my 2 reasons. First, there's a difference in what they mean by the word world, okay? In John 3:16, John is referring to God loving the people in the world that he wants to redeem, or the world itself. Here in 1 John chapter 2, he's referring to an evil system, an organized system under the dominion of Satan that's opposed to God. That's what Howard Marshall calls it. It's mankind organized in rebellion against God. That's what the world is referring to in the book of 1 John. It's attractions of a life lived in opposition to the commandments of God. So that's what the world is. That's different than what he means in John 3:16, okay? Secondly, there's a difference between what he means by the word love. In John 3:16, here's a quote. This will say it better. Howard Marshall says, that is, in John 3:16, love is focused on the well-being of another, that is the world. Whereas here in 1 John 2, it is focused on the pleasure and gratification one hopes to receive. So when he says God loved the world, it's an act that God is doing and try to redeem it. It's for the good of the world. Here, when he says don't love the world, he means don't look to the world to bring you your ultimate satisfaction. Don't look for the things of the world to bring you your true joy. Don't put your highest value in the world. Don't look to the world to be what only God can be for you, is what he means. Now, that's what he means when he says don't love the world or the things in the world. Here's the 2 reasons why you shouldn't do it. Here's the 2 reasons why you should not love the world. Number 1 is this. Because you can't have God's love if you love the world. Because you can't have God's love if you love the world. He says that. Look at verse 15, the second half of 15, and then 16 again. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father, which either means God's love for us that we've experienced or our love for God, perhaps both. If you love the world, the love of the Father is not in you. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the pride of, what does he call it? The desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. None of that is from the Father. It's all from the world. If your heart finds your true value and your true purpose and your greatest treasure in the world, then it is evidence that you do not have God's love in you. You God. You cannot find your truest joy, your truest hope, your truest pleasure in God and find it in the world at the same time. It's impossible. My heart and your heart only has room for one king, people. It's either the world or it's God himself. Don't love the world, because if you love the world, then it's evidence that you don't love God. You can't have God's love if you love the world in the way John's talking about. What does James 4:4 say? You adulterous people, do you not know? That should be not instead of now. I make mistakes. This is your shocked face, right? Do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God or opposition with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Now, you are incapable, and we're not made up to be able to have two different things on the throne of our hearts. It's either the world or it's God. Don't love the world, because if you love the world, you don't have God's love. You can't have God's love. Now, why is this true? Why is it that we can't have our heart's truest affection for the things of the world and for God at the same time? Here's what he says. Look at this in verse 16 again. All that is in the world. Here he describes what's in the world. The desires of the flesh. Things you do for yourself to satisfy your sinful cravings, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, things that you see, temptations that assault us from without, like Eve looking at the fruit, like Achan looking at the spoils of the land, like David looking at Bathsheba, things that assault us from without. The pride of life, boasting of what you have. It's like the feeling I get when I come home from basketball on Monday nights. Lindsay, I come home from basketball, or I come home from playing softball. It's the feeling I get when I start to brag about how good I've done. It's what I want from my wife to make me feel like the man. The pride of life, the pride you feel when other people think you're awesome because your car's really sweet, or because you got so much money, or because you got the new handbag. None of that is from God. All of that is from the world. Do you know the lie that says that you can find true empowerment by gratifying yourself? That's not from God. That's from the world. Do you know the lie that says you can feel safe if you can control everything and everyone around you? That's not from God. That's from the world. Ladies, the lie that says you can truly find belonging in a community if you just get those new shoes. That's not from the Father. That's a lie from the world. The lie that says you can find significance if you'll just exaggerate the truth to make your friends impressed with you. That's not from the Father. That's from the world. All of these things, they're from the world. They're not from God. Beware of the lie that they tell you. Beware of the lie that says you can find true contentment in these things. You can find true fulfillment. You can find true joy. You can find true happiness in those things. Those things are from the world. And if you love the world, then you cannot have God's love in you. John Stott said this: if we are engrossed in the outlook and the pursuits of the world which rejects Christ, it is evident that we have no love for the Father. Have we allowed our hearts to be captured by the world and the things of the world? That's the first reason why you shouldn't. Is because if you do, you can't have God's love. Here's the second reason why you shouldn't love the world. Number two, if you're a note taker. Number two, the second reason why you shouldn't love the world is because the world will not last. The world will not last. Look at verse 17. Verse 17 in 1 John chapter 2. Here it is. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Second reason you should not love the world is because it won't last. It's passing away. It's not going to fulfill you in the way you want to be fulfilled. Look, what does it say in Matthew 6:19? Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. The moth will eat your favorite outfit someday. The rust will destroy your favorite car, and your house will be ruined one day. Don't put your hope in that, because it's passing away. 1 Peter 1:24, all flesh is like grass, and all its glory is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower falls. That's what we're like. We're just so temporary, like a little flower in the field that grows up, sprouts quickly, blossoms, and then the wind passes over it, and it just floats away forever. That's what our life is like, and that's what depending on the world is like. Why shouldn't you do it? Because it's not going to last. When was it that the Titanic sank? I got it in my notes. I'm acting like I'm making this up. April 14th, 1912. The Titanic is going through the North Atlantic Ocean, 11:40 p.m. Right, and there's ice around. It's the unsinkable ship, right? And it strikes an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. and 5 airtight compartments start to flood with water. Now, the max number of compartments that they could sustain being ruined was 4. They knew that they were done for. At least the crew did. At least the captain did. They knew that it was only a matter of time before that ship was at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. And 2 hours later, it finally succumbed to the bottom. The front part of it went down, then it broke in half like this, and then the bottom part went down. They both sank to the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. Putting your ultimate hope in this world, it's like being helicoptered onto the Titanic at 11:41 p.m. The fatal blow has already been struck. It's passing away. It's only a matter of time before the inevitable happens. Why shouldn't you love the world? Because it's passing away and it's not going to last. Now, I want to talk just for a couple minutes here about the difference between enjoying life for God's glory and loving the world. Okay, so we just got through Ecclesiastes, right? Was Ecclesiastes good for you? I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Last year, okay, some of you hated it. It's all right. So in Ecclesiastes, it's all about loving the life that God has given you, enjoying life right now, you know. And so how can you do that and not love the world? Okay, what's the difference between enjoying life as God has given you and loving the world? Are you with me? Yes? Okay, so I want to talk about some differences here. Here's the key. Well, first of all, think about this in 1 Timothy 6:17. If you think that it's wrong to actually enjoy life as a Christian, okay, read this. 1 Timothy 6:17. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. Okay, so there's a verse that's not really talked about much in really conservative churches. God provides us with everything to enjoy. So the food He has given you as a Christian, you're called to eat it and enjoy it and glorify Him while doing so. And the things He has given you, it's good to enjoy them and glorify Him while doing so. That's not bad. So what is the difference then between a heart that glorifies God by enjoying His gifts and a heart that loves the world? Okay? This is the key difference. Here it is. One finds true fulfillment in the gifts, and the other finds true fulfillment in the giver. One tries to find their ultimate fulfillment in the stuff that comes from God, and the other finds their true fulfillment in God Himself. If the only thing in heaven were God, would you still want to go? If so, then that's evidence you really know the joy of Him. Listen. Here is how you can tell. How can you tell? How can you tell if you're finding true fulfillment in the gifts or in God Himself? Here are 3 key markers, all right? Number 1, person, on the screen here, John, the person who is enjoying life for God's glory will be content with the gifts received. A person, I'm sorry about that white, I know you can't see it very well. A person who's enjoying life for God's glory will be content with the gifts they receive by God. They'll be happy. Okay, you've given us a little, you know what? I'm content with it. Why are they content with just a little even? Because their true contentment is in God Himself. And their true contentment is not in the gifts of God. Somebody who is loving the world, they will always want or need more. The second one, loving the world, number one, they will always want or need more. Their job will never be enough for them. The money they have will never be enough for their hearts. The sex will never be good enough for them, you know? Why? Because they're trying to find their true contentment in the gifts themselves. It's like a square peg in a round hole. Their hearts are made for so much more, and they're trying to fill it with something that cannot fill it. That's one key difference. The second key difference, a person who enjoys life for God's glory, number two, they're at peace when the gifts stop. A person who is enjoying life for God's glory, they're at peace when the gifts stop. Why? Why is it that Tom McCullough can be at peace right now as he thinks about pancreatic cancer? Why is it? Because his contentment is in God himself. And he knows that even if life itself is taken away from him, and I don't want that to happen. He knows that even if life itself is taken away from him, he knows where his true contentment lies. Not in life, but in the giver of life. Somebody who loves the world, the second characteristic of them, they can't go on when the gifts stop. They can't go on. When the money runs out, it's like, I can't go on anymore. When the relationship breaks up and it doesn't work, I can't go on anymore. When their kids don't turn out like they want, I can hardly go on anymore. Why? Because their contentment is trying to be found in the gifts instead of in the giver. They love the world. They don't love the Father. They don't find their true love from the Father himself. They're finding it from the gifts of the Father. The third characteristic, the third key difference, somebody who's enjoying life for God's glory will be marked by generosity. They will be marked by generosity. 10% will be a starting point for them in their giving. Why? Because they know that as they use these worldly funds for the kingdom, that it increases their joy and it increases the furtherance of the kingdom. And that's what they're about. They know that the more they give, the more they're connected to the Father, and they love it. They love giving, and so they're generous with their funds. Somebody who loves the world, they're marked by stinginess. They're marked by stinginess because their contentment is found in the things, in the stuff. And if they don't have the stuff, then they can't go on, and so they don't give. Or if they're legalistic, people that go to church, they'll give only as much as they're required to in order to go to heaven, is what they think. You don't see Pharisees give any more than 10%. They'll give 10%, yeah, because they think they're going to heaven because they do it. But they won't give 11%. Why? Because they don't have they don't have generous hearts. They don't have their contentment in God himself. They have the contentment in the things. What's the difference between somebody who enjoys life for God's glory? They're content with the gifts received. They're at peace when the gifts stop, and they're marked by generosity. Somebody who loves the world, they always need more. They can't go on when the gifts stop, and they're marked by stinginess. Have the blessings we received as a nation caused us to fall more in love with the gifts than the giver? I grew up in circles that were really strict. I was homeschooled. Some of you were like, that explains a lot, Jacob. Nothing wrong with being homeschooled. Sometimes you just turn out weird like I am. So there were Christians in my circles, they thought it was a sin to go to the movie theater, like at all. Anybody ever heard of that? Like going to the theater at all is like everybody, okay. And the college that I went to was it's a very conservative college. We weren't allowed to use face cards. So face cards, like with the Jack, the Queen, the King, we weren't allowed to use those cards. I'm not exactly sure, I don't really know why, but we just weren't allowed to do it. And so I don't think, so that's a kind of a conservatism, a kind of fundamentalism that I've grown up in. And personally, I don't think that blanket statements that say all swimming or, all dancing or all movies or whatever is sin, I personally don't think that's helpful. I think we need to beware when we start forcing everyone to follow our convictions and then judging them if they don't. Colossians 2:16 and following talks about that exactly. I think conservative people need to read that really more often. I don't think you're worldly if you see movies necessarily, or listen to secular music, or dance at your graduation party. I don't think that means you're worldly. I don't think that's what this passage means. I think there's room for discernment in how holiness applies in our lives. And there's room for grace in understanding of someone else's conviction as well. So I think a lot of Christians that maybe have grown up in circles like I have, we've kind of rejected that kind of fundamentalism in that view. We've rejected that, say, no, that's silly. I mean, you can watch Passion of the Christ and not be sinning in the theater, right? That's silly. A lot of people have rejected that kind of fundamentalism. However, what I see now, and by the way, I love my fundamentalist friends. One of my pastor friends is, and I love him and respect him. However, what I see now from those who have rejected that kind of way of life, that kind of thinking, is a philosophy and a value that doesn't seem to be that much different at all from non-Christians. That's a problem. That's a problem. I'm not saying you never need to go to the theater, or you can't dance at your graduation party, or you can't use face cards. I'm also saying you're not a Christian if you do or don't. I'm just concerned about us and just American Christians in general. Have our hearts been captured by the things of this world? Or are we more captured by the giver? Here's two ways that I see us as Christians engaging with the world that alarms me. This isn't on your screen, okay? Two ways that I see us as Christians engaging with the world that alarms me. The first is by how much time and money we invest in the things of the world. Is by how much time and money and thinking that we invest in the things of the world. Why is it, friends, that we'll drop thousands at Christmas on stuff, but then we'll balk at $25 a month for missions? Is that not indicative of a heart problem? Why is it that we're so obsessed with football? We think we have fake football, fantasy football. We talk about football before football happens. We watch football while it happens. We talk about football after it happens. We talk about the upcoming game for football. But when the forecast is doubtful on Sunday morning, Christians don't set their alarm to show up to worship. They'll freeze their tails off at the football game. You're here in the snow, by the way, I know that. Why is it that we'll spend hours upon hours binge watching on Netflix, or liking posts and videos on Facebook, but we're too busy, quote unquote, to study the Bible with a friend or to study it for ourselves? Isn't this indicative of a heart problem? Do not love the world or the things in the world. If someone were to determine, an outsider were to look at the way you spend your time and money, and look at the way I spend my time and money in the balcony today, if somebody were to look at the way we spend our time and money and were to try to determine what we truly value, what would they say we truly value by the way we spend our time and our money? Would it be, obviously, this person values some kind of God, some kind of purpose for Christianity, or this person clearly values their own selves and their contentment and comfort and enjoyment? That's the first way I see us engaging with the world that alarms me. The second way that alarms me in the way I see us engaging with the world is how we affirm and promote worldly values as good. It's not just the amount of time we engage with the world. It's how we promote and encourage and agree with worldly values that the Bible calls sinful. Kevin DeYoung says, worldliness is whatever makes sin look normal and righteousness look strange. Worldliness isn't so much about going to movies or not going to movies, or listening to secular music or not listening to secular music. It's about affirming and finding your value in the values that are this worldly. Are you with me? Loving the world. It's not about just engaging or not engaging media. I love that TV show, we say, with the with the two guys and the one young guy, 2.5 Men they call it. I love that TV show where they talk about women as possessions and they have sex incredibly like ridiculous heathens who are headed to hell. I love that TV show. Why do you love that? Do not love the world or the things in the world. I love that country song that talks about getting revenge on your ex. Just fires me up. That is not from the Father. That's from the world. I love that movie, Need for Speed 47, or whatever number they're on. I love how they really take matters into their own hands and stick it to their enemy. Will we continue to laugh at and be entertained by the sin that Jesus died to save us from? Will we continue to laugh at and be entertained by the sin that sends people to hell? I've personally been challenged by the way I joke about drugs and alcohol. If you know me, I'll say something stupid about alcohol or something in order to make people laugh. And what I'm doing is I'm subtly making light of something that destroys people's lives. And I'm sorry. I don't want to love the world. Perhaps you're a Christian today and you recognize the draw of trying to find too much joy in the things of the world, and you need to just simply step away from some things. You just got to step away from some things. Maybe you need to sell one of your cars and give the money to missions to remind yourself where your true value lies. It's not wrong to have cars. We have cars. We have two. Not wrong to have them. Maybe you need to remind yourself, however, as you're being pulled away from love for the Lord. Maybe you need to give up that favorite sitcom and replace it with reading the Bible with a friend. Maybe you need to not play fantasy football or not watch that soap opera and volunteer at a charitable organization instead. Maybe you need to downsize your house and start living on mission somewhere for the kingdom. Maybe you need to unsubscribe from Netflix for a year and give that $10 a month to missions to remind yourself of where your heart's value lies. Maybe you need to sell your sports jersey or camping equipment or fishing equipment and give the money away. Don't do these things. I'm not being legalistic here. All those things are good and right in their proper context. Don't hear me wrong. But maybe you need to remind yourself of where your heart truly finds its value. As John Calvin said, our hearts are idol factories. Can I just ask you, what captures your heart today? What captures your heart today? Is it the things of the world, or is it God himself? One is a Christian, and one isn't. There's really bad news. I'm winding down, all right? I know I've been intense. The bad news is that there is nothing in this world that can fill the void in our hearts. Listen, people who struggle with looking at things online, you'll never see a girl naked enough to fill the void in your heart. You never will. You'll never have a big enough bank account to fill the void in your heart. You never will. Oh, I wrote this down. I thought it was good. I want you to hear this. You'll never be able to find enough food at the all-you-can-eat buffet to fill the hunger in your heart. You never will. Your stocks and bonds will never go high enough to pay for the deficit in your heart. And even the worst news than that is because all of us have looked to other things other than God as our true heart's desire. Because of that, God is angry at sin. Because he's the only one who deserves any praise and glory in that kind of way. And he promises to punish those who seek their true joy in something other than God himself. And he's just. He's right to do it because he's that awesome. That's the bad news. This is how you can free yourself, by the way, from being captured by the world. The good news is that God, because of his great love for us, for you and for me, bore our rebellion, the sin of our rebellion, took it upon himself on the cross, suffered God's wrath in our place, and rose again from the dead, defeating everything we've ever done. And now anyone who believes in Christ is offered the truest satisfaction they can ever get for free. It's so good. Now, the things you're looking for in sex and in drugs and in money and in stuff and in your family and in your job and in your respect or whatever, the things you're really looking for can be found in God himself if you will believe in Christ. Tim Keller writes this in his book, Counterfeit Gods, which I really recommend, by the way. I gave it to a friend this week. Counterfeit Gods, Tim Keller writes this. He said, after the global economic crisis began in the mid-2008, I know a lot of you lost a lot of money in your house at that time. After the global economic crisis began in mid-2008, there followed a tragic string of suicides of formerly wealthy and well-connected individuals. The acting chief financial officer of Freddie Mac, the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, he hanged himself in his basement. The chief executive of Sheldon Good, a leading U.S. real estate auction firm, shot himself in the head behind the wheel of his red Jaguar. A French money manager who invested the wealth of many of Europe's royal and leading families, and who had lost $1.4 billion of his clients' money in Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme, he slit his wrists and died in his Madison Avenue office. When a Bear Stearns executive learned that he would not be hired by J.P. Morgan Chase, which had bought his collapsed firm, he took a drug overdose and leapt from the 29th floor of his office building. A friend said, quote, "This Bear Stearns thing just broke his spirit." Their true joy was in the gifts instead of the giver. Later in the chapter, Keller continues. He says, quote, "In the midst of that great financial crisis, I heard a man named Bill recount that 3 years before the crisis, he had become a Christian, and his ultimate security had shifted from money to his relationship with God through Christ." Here's what Bill said. Bill said, "If this economic meltdown had happened more than 3 years ago, well, I don't know how I could have faced it, how I would have kept going. Today, I can tell you honestly, I've never been happier in my life." How does he do that? How does that happen to somebody? His true heart's treasure was found in something that blew all that other stuff away. God himself. How do you free your heart from love of the world? From having been captured by the things of this world? Here it is. By letting it be captured by someone who is out of this world. That's how you free it. Let's pray together. Our gracious Father, we entrust these words to you, and we ask that you would bear fruit in our lives through them. And Lord, the pull of the world is so strong, and it's the pull of the evil one is what it is, Lord. It's the lie of the evil one, telling him that the things of this world will satisfy us, and that you're holding out on us somehow by giving us yourself. And so, Lord, I confess that that pull is strong on me and that I've given into it some. And so I ask for your forgiveness and your grace. And Lord, I ask for you to be my greatest treasure. And Lord, I want to be generous with my time and my money, and I don't want to be tied down to this stuff. I know that I can't take it with me. Lord, would you please replace the things I try to make God's with yourself in my heart? And then would you free me up to invest in your kingdom and eternal things Lord, would you please work this in my heart and in our hearts today, Lord? You blessed us. We're wealthy people. Compared to the rest of the world, we're incredibly wealthy people. And we don't want to find our joy in your gifts instead of in the giver. Would you please break us of that, Lord? Would you strip away our fingers tied to this world so that our love for you can increase, Lord? And would you help us to see the trials of this life as opportunities to love you more and to find greater pleasure in you instead of in this world? Lord, would you please do that in our hearts today? And Lord, for the Christians across this country, Lord, we have loved these things. We have loved your gifts. And people who have gone before us have been faithful, who have prayed and begged you for blessing and have shared the gospel and spread your kingdom. And we have, by and large, replaced joy for you with joy for your gifts. Lord, bring us to repentance. Do what you've got to do in us as Americans to bring us to repentance, Lord God. So friends, I just want to ask you today, what has your heart today? Where is your heart finding its truest joy? Where is your heart finding its greatest value? Is it in the world, the things of the world, the respect people give you, the security you feel from the money you have, or the way that you can control people in your life? What is it that has your heart today? Is it the world and its beliefs, or is it God himself? Why not receive the payment that God has made because of his great love for you on the cross, and let God be the king of your heart today? Maybe you need to make some decisions today. Maybe you need to give up some things. Maybe you need to give up some things. Whatever it is that the Lord's doing in your heart, I pray that you would just obey to that. Obey him today.